Guys, we're only a few days away from the theatrical release of Creed. So looking forward to it. Let's continue the Rocky reviews with Rocky 3. Rocky 3 stars Sylvester Stallone, Talia Shire, Burgess Meredith, and Mr. T, and is directed by Sylvester Stallone. Guys, before I get started, I have already created a playlist for my Rocky reviews and anything else Rocky related, so make sure you check that out. So when Rocky 3 first came out in 1982, I remember, and I was a wee little lad back then, but I remember there was a lot of buzz about it because they took a different approach with this one. So after the big fight in Rocky 2, as we all know, Rocky becomes the heavyweight champion of the world. And with that becomes success, becomes fame, and becomes a lot of money. So of course the logical step for Rocky 3 was to put Rocky in the midst of all this fame and fortune and see how he handles it. You could be the best natured person in the world, but when you have all this fame and fortune and money just thrust upon you, it's gonna affect you, and it affected Rocky. Rocky starts doing commercials, he pretties himself up, he loses weight. So Rocky 3 is really about losing focus and ultimately losing the title. And what do you have to do to overcome that? And just a quick little side note before I go any further, there will be spoilers in this review. So if you haven't seen Rocky 3, I would suggest you turn this off, watch Rocky 3, then come back and watch it. Now Rocky 3 has some really awesome things about it, and let's talk about it. I like that they took this approach with the Rocky story, thrusting all this fame and fortune upon him. And you can tell really quickly in the movie that Rocky's priorities have changed. He doesn't seem to care so much about boxing. He's lost his fire, he's lost his hunger. And Mickey sees this, so Mickey has really been protecting Rocky throughout his next few fights. He really hasn't had an opponent that was near as good as Apollo Creed. Along comes Clubber Lang, played by Mr. T. I remember Clubber Lang was one scary mofo, even twice as scary as Apollo Creed. He was the equivalent of the Mike Tyson of his day. And Mr. T has been rising up to the top of the food chain, and he wants a shot at Rocky Balboa really bad, even going so far as to insulting his wife. And that's what sets Rocky off into taking on Clubber Lang in the ring. And I really like that they chose a fighter with a completely different fighting style than Apollo Creed. If you remember, Apollo Creed was more of kind of a showboat type fighter. He took his time and he wore his opponent down until he won the fight, at least in the first Rocky. Clubber Lang was a straight up brawler. He took his opponents down usually in the first 1 or 2 rounds. So Rocky had to completely train a different style in order to take him on. Now, as you guys know, that there are 2 fights in this movie, and Rocky really didn't take Clubber Lang seriously because he was offended by his remarks to his wife. So he didn't really prepare for the fight. And then Mickey gets sick, and so Rocky has that on his mind. So of course he just gets slaughtered in the ring. Now, I gotta talk about the scene where Mickey dies. You don't really hear it mentioned that much, but I thought Stallone did a phenomenal job in that scene where he is crying over Mickey. It's heartbreaking. And it's believable because I think that is how a character like Rocky would react to such a great loss. So after Mickey dies, Rocky really just goes down in the dumps. He's embarrassed. He doesn't want to really deal with life anymore. He doesn't want to deal with the boxing game. He doesn't want to deal with anything. He pretty much shuts the world out. And then along comes Apollo Creed. And just on a side note, doesn't this story sound really familiar? Yes, it's pretty much the plot of Southpaw with Jake Gyllenhaal. But I love the moment when Apollo Creed comes in and he wants to help Rocky out. And that takes a lot of guts to help the guy out that just took the heavyweight championship of the world from you. And this just speaks volumes about the character of Apollo Creed. And I love all those scenes where Apollo is trying to get to Rocky, and it's not easy. And it really takes Adrian to get Rocky to finally come around and pull his head out of his ass, for lack of a better term. But what I really love about this is how Apollo Creed completely reinvented the way Rocky fights. He doesn't fight like a street brawler anymore. He actually fights with technique. And if you guys notice, Stallone is a lot thinner in this movie. He actually lost, I think, something like 40 or 50 pounds to play Rocky in this role because he wanted Rocky to be really slim. He wanted him to look like he was kind of a high society type Rocky. And I remember Stallone saying in an interview that he really didn't eat that much except for fish and he drank a lot of water and a lot of coffee. And the willpower of Sylvester Stallone. He is such an inspiring person. It's funny because Rocky's an inspiring person, but Stallone himself is an inspiring person because he puts his body through so much to play these roles. What he put his body through, especially in Rocky IV, is just insane. And we'll get to that in the Rocky IV Revisited review. Now I want to talk about the final fight. The final fight in Rocky III is awesome. It is balls to the wall, and I love it because it's different. It's not 15 rounds. It's real quick. It's 3 rounds. And the music is just so big by Bill Conti in this fight. I never got to see Rocky III in the theater, but I will bet that that final fight scene must have been crazy to witness on the big screen. And I love how Rocky is constantly getting inside Clubber Lang's head and saying, "You ain't so bad. My mother hits harder than that." And I love the camera work in the final fight too, because there's a lot more close-ups. It's almost like the camera is taunting you, just like Rocky is taunting Clubber. And every time a punch is thrown in this movie, it sounds like an explosion. I think they might have went a little bit too far with that, but Rocky III is a full-on balls-to-the-wall action movie. As far as any cons for Rocky III, you know, it's hard for me to pinpoint what it is, but I will say it's not one of my go-to Rocky movies. But when I do watch it, I have a lot of fun with it. So I am definitely going to give Rocky III a purchase worthy. And really, Rocky III is kind of the start of the Rocky series turning into an action genre instead of a drama genre, at least for the next couple movies. And that is nice because you might be in a different mood. If I want to watch an action Rocky movie, I'll watch 3 and 4. If I want to watch a drama, I'll watch 1 and 2. I'll never watch 5. So guys, that is my Rocky III review. What did you guys think of Rocky III? I'm sure there are a lot of mixed reviews for Rocky III, and I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Guys, thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and Humdrum out.